This is it. All or nothing. Guys, you have no idea how much trouble this has been today. I do have a case of the Mondays. Welcome, everybody,
Absolutely.
and thank you for joining us tonight. This is my first live stream. I'm calling it the case of the Mondays because it's Mondays. Mondays sucks.
Sure
Uh,
does.
and I thought it would be fun. This is something that's been in the works for a while to go back to my roots for the podcast and go back to interviewing interesting people and talking with them and trying to learn what's going on out there in the world from different perspectives. For some of you who've been around for a long time, you'll be familiar with this format. It's been a while since I've done it. Ro, I think you might have actually been there. We're talking with Ro tonight, the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast host, Red 5 network leader, and Chicago freelance photographer. What a storied resume you have, sir. Welcome.
Woohoo. Thank you
How you
for
doing,
having
buddy?
me. Fantastic. It's a little late over here in Chicago, but happy to join you on your premiere edition of Case of the Mondays. It is Monday. It's a holiday. Happy Labor Day. I hope you didn't
Oh
have to
yeah.
labor.
I did not today. Um, I forgot that it was a holiday. Happy Labor Day, everybody. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
if Faders in the chat say something interesting. Working on it, buddy.
Working on it. Getting there.
So I wanted to talk to Ro because he has a very interesting and also kind of terrifying job. His day job is a Chicago freelance photographer. Am I getting that correct?
Chicago news photographer.
News photographer.
I guess
Okay.
I'm I guess I'm freelance. I used to be full time, but started my own video production company, and I said you can keep your job, but then they offered it to me again, and I said, all right, I'll come back. So I shoot news for a living and do all sorts of other wonderful video things. It's a lot of
Like
fun.
what? How did? Well, first of all, how did you get into something like that? Because that seems like a very niche market.
Well, as a lot of people that might know us, both you and I, we talked a little bit about my history as far as why I got into that sort of thing, and my love for Star Wars and all the people behind the scenes that did the camera work and the editing and the sound and the all the craftspeople that really made that universe, made that galaxy far, far away from nothing. Really, as a kid, as a 7-year-old kid, I was really fascinated by the work that they put into it. So I learned as much as I could about editing, about sound, about filming, photography, and I really entrenched myself. Again, even at a young age, I knew exactly that's the type of work that I wanted to get into.
Hmm.
And a lot of people struggle with what do I want to do when I grow up, et cetera, et cetera. But I knew, like I said, I knew since I was 7 years old when I saw Star Wars for the first time. I kind of wanted to get into that realm. And went to college. The last year of college, I got a phone call from a television station in Chicago that they needed a vacation relief photographer, and that was in '91, I think. And I took the job as a freelance vacation relief news photographer, and slowly kind of worked my way like up in the rankings, and then I'm still there. So Telemundo was bought by NBC many years ago, and now they say it's synergy between the two. So I work for both stations when they need me,
Hmm.
and doing my part, as they say.
Okay. So what do you specialize in? Is there something in particular that like when somebody needs something they go to you for?
No, I mean, the only thing that I don't do, and they know it because I'm like really not into sports, but when we get scheduled and the desk, they have their meetings up in the NBC tower, and they say, well, what's going on in Chicago today? There's a protest here. There's a stabbing over here. The mayor's going to have a press conference. The governor's in town. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then they plan things out, and then they assign the crews to go out. And then sometimes you're put in standby, which means, we don't just go cover something, but just kind of hang out. If there's a breaking news story, then we will send you to that. But it's, my wife always says, because I love what I do, my wife always says I'm very lucky because I really haven't worked a day in my life. I would be doing this. I enjoy it a lot. So I'm very lucky.
Right on. So the biggest thing that I always have in my head when you tell me that you do the news in Chicago, Chicago's got a reputation, as I'm sure you know, for being a pretty violent place, and especially with the last 4 years or so, with the riots and BLM and all that stuff. Like, it seems like a terrifying gig. I remember you've texted me before, like, hey, heading off to work, and for us it was like pretty late, and like, you got the night shift tonight, and I was a little worried for you. Like, how do you navigate that? Is that like a stressful situation where you're going out in the truck and you're like, oh God, here we go?
Balls of steel, my friend.
Is that it?
That's it. No, we have to be careful like any job. You have to be careful, going to these places. And obviously, we usually get to crime scenes, obviously, after the crime has happened. There's police all over the place, so it's relatively okay to like be there.
Okay.
But there are times when there's an active scene, an active shooter. The police keep us, at a certain length away from the action.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to fires, we'll go to crime scenes, and as you know, you've said it. There's a lot of crime in Chicago: shootings, stabbings, gang warfare, tough stuff like that. We just had a 4-year-old little boy that was shot in the head on the south side. Just happened to be sleeping in his own bed, and fell victim to gang violence and shit like that. So it's horrible. One of the things that I really don't enjoy are stories that deal with kids and children. So as a father, I think before I was a father, I was okay with it. But obviously, when you become a father, your whole outlook on life changes, and those are the stories that really affect you.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You've texted me a handful of times, like, "Hey, I just had to deal with this one thing," and I was like, "Geez, man, that's like, it affects me. I've got kids. I can't imagine if I was in their shoes and that something like that would happen to me." So, like, how do you turn that stuff off when you're there on the streets and you're watching this happen or you're reporting on this news, and like, is there a disconnect between your work life and like, I'm at home now, I just got to turn it off?
Absolutely. Doctors go through the same thing. They deal with life and death, and they have patients die on their watch and stuff like that. And it's not like that for us. I mean, we see death and stuff a lot, but there is a certain disconnect. And I want to say that because we always have a camera on our shoulder and we're looking at through that viewfinder. That viewfinder kind of separates us from the scene. We zoom through the lens and we compose the shot, and we're thinking in visual terms like that. But then we kind of have to put a buffer up and kind of forget that there's maybe a person that's laying on the floor there, on the ground there, with a bullet in his head. Yeah. And all that stuff. So there definitely is a buffer. You do have to kind of compartmentalize what you're seeing and what you take back with you, because you want to leave all that stuff in the news truck before you go home. You just you have to. It can affect people that really don't know how to separate the two, just like PTSD with soldiers coming home and stuff like that. It's important to be able to have that ability to kind of separate. And obviously, one of the biggest things I do to relax, as you can see behind me, and obviously through the history of both of our podcasts, it's just something that we enjoy. And I think that's one of the reasons that, Brad and I really created the Red 5 network, just to kind of meet people and have fun doing what we do inside this space.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to get to that in a minute. I had one question about the being in the news industry and stuff like that. So, like, there's I don't know how you'd say it politely, but there's a lot of angst in the world right now for mainstream media, right? Everybody, the mainstream media is bad, and I fall victim to the same thing. I kind of get into that rut where I'm like, freaking, they're the bad guys. When you're in that world and you're working with your coworkers and your people, is there like, do you take it personal when people talk about that kind of stuff? When they're like, "Oh, the freaking mainstream media is a bunch of bullshit." Like, is that? Do you feel like they're directing that at you, or
Yeah.
are you like, hey, I'm just the camera guy. That's the upper up, it's above my pay grade kind of stuff.
Well, I think the news industry has had a rough last 4 years because our commander in chief, certain things that he said that kind of spilled into the regular world. I've never heard the term fake news uttered before 4 years ago. But, we go out, we do our work. There was one time that we were covering a funeral and we get a bottle thrown at our truck. And, we have to put all the gear away when we find that it might be like a dangerous scene. We just we just have to kind of pack up and just kind of be careful and then leave if it warrants it. But this woman came over to us and started yelling at us, the usual fake news crap. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? We're here covering a funeral. One of your, a neighbor of yours just died. How are we fake news? So it does definitely affect me as far as that goes. But I mean, I understand the world is in the state that it is in. And there's, definitely several reasons for it. But I guess, to cut to the chase, yeah, I do take it personally because, we're not sitting in a boardroom saying, how can we fool the people today, this morning? It's like,
Yeah,
we don't do that.
yeah. I've heard you mention before when we were kind of talking about this, like you'd be like, the people that I work with are all stand-up people, and they're all just want to get information out there, and that's the goal. And I feel like, because it's hard to ignore. I mean, there is obvious bias in the mainstream media. It's hard to say that there isn't. Like, to say that there isn't a bias in the media is kind of more of a conspiracy theory than to say that there isn't. You know what I mean? It's like, whether it's right leaning or left leaning, it doesn't really matter. They both have an agenda to them. So I think like there's a certain aspect to, once you get to a certain level of influence in the news media, that's kind of where the influence is coming from, as far as the agendas that we're seeing nowadays. And I think people like you, and I'm sure your coworkers and stuff, where you're just there to do your job, you're there to report what's happening, you have no dog in the fight, so to say. I think it's sad, also hard to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Sure.
I wouldn't blame you. We've talked about this before. I don't put any of that kind of stuff on you, but it's the world is a strange place, man. And I think there are definitely influences, but I think they're coming from higher up than your freelance photographers and your news anchors and stuff like that. Do you have a coworker that you really just like love working with them? What kind of camaraderie do you guys have when you're out there on the streets doing news
Yeah,
reports?
especially with news. I mean, there used to be three of us. Now there's two of us. I mean, there's a news photographer, there's the camera guy and the reporter, and it really is a team. We watch each other's backs. We work together, depending on what story it is, and it is a team. It is a group of individuals that we try to do our best work every single day, and then we keep each other in check as well. There are times where reporters ask me, what do you think of this? Should I say this? And I'm like, no, because this didn't happen, so we probably shouldn't say this. So stuff like that. I mean, for me personally, I love working with each and every one of the reporters that I've worked with. I've developed, quite a relationship with everybody, and I enjoy them. I enjoy working with them.
That's cool. That's good. It's good to have a team. And I like that you guys kind of check each other on, like, hey, should we say, how do we describe the certain situation? That's promising to hear, I guess. That's what you would expect.
Yeah, and it in today's news world, and I know it's different for every corporation, but there are the little guys, boots on the ground. Sometimes we fight the top. We fight for the ability to tell a story correctly. Sometimes we get pushback from the top. How to cover something. Um, and I want to be careful here because I don't want to say, they're not telling us, what to tell the public. They're, sometimes, like you said, there's some sort of subliminal agenda. And I'm like, it might sound like I'm going back on my word here, but we're definitely not in the boardroom saying, what are we going to tell the people today? But we have to be very careful because there are teams of lawyers and attorneys upstairs making sure that we won't screw up, and that is the checks and balances between everybody involved in the newsroom, whether it's a photographer, a writer, a desk assistant, producer, to make sure that all our information is as correct as it can be at the time of publishing. Because if it's not, we not only do we lose the reputation of our voice, but we can get fired, we can get screwed later on. So it's a very fine line as far as trying to do our best work and then put it out there for put it forward, our best foot forward.
Yeah, and it's I was gonna say something pretty profound while you were talking. I was like, oh, that's a good point I should make. But I think there is boots on the ground people are the ones who just want to get the information out there. You guys are like, hey, there's been this event that happened, whether it's a shooting or whatever. So like, what would you tell somebody? For me, for instance, oh man, the best example I can think of off the top of my head is recent. I think it's a lot of this stuff is written by journalists. It's the written word. It's not necessarily the local news channel that's doing this kind of stuff. But when Joe Rogan got COVID, really, and he took a medicine. He took ivermectin. I think one of the things that he took, and he's like, I felt 4 days later after taking care of myself. And the news articles out there like Joe Rogan takes veterinarian horse medication or something like that. Like, you have that side of things, and if you're talking to somebody who's like just adamant that the news is lying to them, what kind of things do you say? Like reassure them, like, hey man, yeah, there's that out there, but for the most part, we're good. Like, how do you address it like that?
So I don't know if it's my internet connection, but I heard every other word, and all I heard was tranquilizer and Joe Rogan.
I'm sorry, guys. Just upgrade my internet today. It's just not it. But I appreciate you guys powering through with me. What I was just gonna say, it's like for somebody who's adamant the news is lying to them. Like, how do you address somebody like that, or do you just kind of like, you know what, it's not worth it. I'll go do something else, or I'll go to somebody else. Like,
I mean, for the most part, I personally am a non-confrontational person, but I have had my arguments and discussions with people out on the street because, one, I believe in what I do and the team that I'm attached to at the time. So when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you're lying, I tend to get into the fight mode and, and tell them politely, I disagree with you, sir. But, it depends. And again, local news is a lot different than national news, and it's a lot different than some of the other, I'm going to call them shock jocks, that really did not have schooling in journalism. They just got into the position because some company needed to fill a seat, and now they have a TV show that is purported to be news. So you really have to be careful and see, well, where are you getting your information from?
Yeah. Do you have you had a moment where you kind of like look at something on the news or whatever, and you kind of just roll your eyes? Like, do you ever feel like somebody else out there giving people like you a bad name?
Yeah. I've actually worked with one or two reporters locally that have um, done some unethical things, and not like major. Like there, I'll give you one example, and it still bothers me because it's not true to how I would have done it. So let's just say there's a shot of a crowd, and they're just mulling around, and the audio of that crowd, um, nothing major's happening. You can just hear like murmurs and blah, blah, a little crowd. Okay, so there was one time that I put that at the beginning of a story, and the reporter asked me, "Can you use the audio over here because it's a little bit more boisterous?" And I'm like, "Well, that's not the audio for this shot, so I'm not gonna do it." And
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I mean, when you're changing the skeleton of the structure of those two shots and adding audio that's not part of that video,
Hmm.
that you're manipulating the story. And I felt like that's one, it's wrong, and why would you have me do that? I'm not going to do it. And I didn't, because it was completely 100% wrong.
Good
But
for you, man.
that would be to me, that was a reporter that I worked with that, again, didn't really take the job seriously as a journalist. I don't know. I won't say anything more, but those are the type of things that, like, to me, I'm like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And obviously, me as an editor, I have the final control. I'm not going to do that. You're going to tell me to do that? Well, you're going to have to take it to the manager, because I'm not doing that. That's manipulating the story.
Hmm.
So that kind of stuff pisses me off.
Oh, that's actually good to hear. That's I hope that there's a lot of people out there like you, that are boots on the
I hope
ground
so
news
too. I hope
reporters.
so too. And we've had reporters, when we interview people, say this. And for the most part, it is a general, like, we'll get to a story and everybody is saying this, but that one person that you're interviewing, the reporter wants you to say something exactly like that because he heard this other guy say it. Well, again, that's something that is a no-no. Don't tell subjects how to say something. Just put the microphone in front of their face, and if they say it, they say it. If they don't, then they don't. Period.
Yeah.
So this was like back in the early '90s. We had like one reporter that did that a lot, and I'm like, dude, you can't do
Early
that.
90s. Oh, we're talking 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, when I first started, I had worked with one reporter that did a lot of bullshit like that, and
Okay.
we had to put our foot down. She's no longer in the industry.
Do you think things like that have gotten worse or better over the past 30 years since you've been in the industry this long?
Um, well, here's the thing. The technology to be able to fact check has gotten a lot better. So I'm really surprised that I don't want to say that I don't think it's gotten worse. Again, if I Photoshop a picture of a crowd and say this was 30,000 people, and then later on Photoshop a crowd and say something different, I mean, you can check it. I mean, Google's got all sorts of tools where you can check the source of a picture, and then we do it all the time. I'm not going to say that mistakes don't happen, and especially in national news, you've got you know again, tools that make that you got to make sure that you check all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if it's gotten worse. I don't think so. Um, I don't know. As much as I work in news, I really don't see a lot of other news because I'm in it. I don't want to see like news.
Yeah.
I
Don't
used
go home
to
and
Right. I used to love, as a kid, I used to love going to the auto show here in Chicago. But when I started working the auto show, I'm like, get me away from that. I hate it. I hate it now.
yeah, yeah. Same thing happened. Like, this is completely unrelated. But I worked at a pizza restaurant, pizza place when I was a teenager, and I think after I quit, I think I stopped eating pizza for like a good 5 years. I was like, I don't ever want to see it again. And it's like,
Yeah.
please don't give me any more pizza. So I kind of get it. You know, the same thing happens with a lot of people in particular industries. Like you do it day to day. It's literally your job. You don't want to take it home and continue to consume the same type of stuff that you're making. So that is a perfect segue into your is it safe to say obsession with Star Wars? Is that a safe thing?
Yeah. You can call me
Yeah.
obsessed with Star Wars. I just want to address R2 the Icky.
Yeah, go for it.
Uh, Hilarious. He's asking, do you know who was behind the Max Headroom WGN hack from the 80s?
What is that?
The
Can you I don't have no idea, so explain it to me.
All right. So back in I think it was 88 or 89. Do you remember the show Max Headroom?
I do not.
Man, how old are you? How young are
30,
you?
33.
So Max Headroom was a British show that was adapted for American television, and it was Google him, Google Max Headroom. But anyways, he was an electronic head, and MTV made him famous.
Oh, okay.
Max Headroom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So back in the late 80s, WGN was running a movie, and then all of a sudden, somebody broke into the broadcast by using, very high-powered microwave transmissions, and they actually broke into the WGN airwaves and did a Max Headroom parody where somebody was spanking Max Headroom, and you can see that it was like from somebody's basement. There were no jars of corks, by the way, but it was somebody's basements for sure.
Okay.
But it lasted like 7 minutes or something like that, and it went down in Chicago broadcast history as the only time that somebody was able to break into a major television station's signal, which the FCC got involved, the FBI got involved, because you're not supposed to be able to do that. It's
Yeah.
first of all the equipment to be able to do that, especially in the early 80s or late 80s, was you had to have tons and tons of heavy equipment to be able to do that. So the jury is still out on that. I think there are two people that might know, and one of them is dead.
They never found out who actually did it, huh?
No,
Wow.
I don't
What
think
was the
so.
message? What did they cut and put in its place for the
It
news
was
broadcast?
it was it was just gibberish, and I can't remember. But you guys look up Max Headroom Chicago WGN. It's a fascinating story. It's really
I
funny.
will do that. That
Yeah.
sounds funny. All right, so back to Star Wars. So
Yes,
you
obsessed.
yes, obsessed with Star Wars. So this started when do you think? For your obsession with you were there for A New Hope, correct? In theaters, 1977.
No, I was there for Star Wars. It wasn't called A New Hope until 1992.
Checking me again. There you go. So that was it though? That was the day you were like, I'm in 100%.
Yeah, I saw the Star Destroyer go overhead. I was sitting there in the theater with a hot dog in my hand, and as soon as that Star Destroyer went over, I dropped the hot dog. My jaw fell to the floor, and I said, "Wow, this is amazing. What am I seeing here?" And like I said, earlier, it really got me into really, appreciating the work that went into creating this galaxy out of nothing. Um, and I was hooked. I was hooked. Darth Vader came through that door. He looked amazing. Stormtroopers were amazing. The special effects, were fantastic. This story that just connected with me was everything that I ever wanted to experience as a kid. Modern fairy tale. I mean, it's just everything. Everything was working on all four cylinders.
Nice. And it's so there was ever a point where you kind of dropped off of Star Wars, like you were like outgrowing it, or was it just
Um,
full bore from that point forward all the way till now with Darth Vader sitting over your shoulder?
Yeah, no, I mean there was a time. Obviously, a lot of Star Wars fans call it the dark times in the mid '90s when there was really no Star Wars, and Star Wars kind of like fell off to the side, um, and yeah, there was nothing in the planning until George Lucas announced that that he was starting to work on Episode One, A Phantom Menace, which was even before then. I think we got a novel from, it wasn't the Timothy Zahn stuff, but we got a novel. Let's see if I can look it up. Anyways, it was a novel that had a comic book release. It was a book release, and it was a soundtrack release. It was almost a movie with everything that went with it. But except for the movies.
Hmm.
So.
Interesting. It
Yeah.
wasn't Splinter of the Mind's Eye, was it?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye was a book released in 1978 by Alan Dean Foster that was supposed to be the sequel to Star Wars in case Star Wars flopped. George Lucas wanted to
Okay.
do a second movie on the cheap, and this was the answer to that.
Okay. So, kind of talking about like mental health and leaving your work at home and escaping. You created Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast with Brad as kind of a way to decompress after a day of work, or how did that come about?
You know, I've been lucky because I don't need, like, I see a lot of people saying I'm getting off Twitter for like a week because I need to decompress. I'm not like that. Um, that's cool. You can decompress, but I love hanging out on Twitter. I love the people that I've met, including you and your team. And actually, you guys, you're the first podcast that I ever found, even before the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast. I remember listening to, I don't know what the show was, but you guys cut right to the action, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is great. If I ever do a podcast, I'm going to be like these guys and not talk about fluff for the first 13 minutes and just get into the nitty gritty.
Yep.
But yeah, so as far as like decompress, no, I mean, Brad and I started Scarif in 2019, right at the tail of Star Wars Celebration here in Chicago. But him and I were internet friends beforehand. We talked about JFK and Kennedy conspiracies. I'm interested in all that stuff too. And I wanted to do a documentary on the information that he had found. So I was kind of asking him like where he lived and it'd be cool to do this documentary and stuff like that. I had a video production company. And then for some reason we found out that not only are our birthdays a day apart, but we also love Star Wars. So we kind of switched the conversation from JFK conspiracies to Star Wars, and realized that we probably should start a Star Wars podcast, and that's where Scarif came from.
Nice. And your first episode was the Chicago convention, correct? The Star Wars convention?
Yeah, celebrations. So I took a microphone and recorder down there and interviewed some people, put a show together, and released that as the first episode of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast.
Nice. Now, how is what's so for us? Like we've been in the podcasting world for a couple of years now, and it's freaking tough, dude. It's not easy to break out. Um, I remember my first couple of months. I was just stoked to get like 10 to 15 downloads per episode,
Mm-hmm.
and the more content you put out there, you have your viewers. You get a consistent like, oh yeah, I've got 10 per episode every time I drop it. How have you guys been navigating the podcasting world? Are you out there like actively trying to catch on to the algorithm or use hashtags, or you just kind of like let it happening organically?
We're kind of just winging it. I think we have ups and downs when it comes to consistency, and obviously everybody says consistency is king. But this last couple of months has been a string of really consistent shows that we've put together with our new co-host Chantel, which
Mm-hmm.
is she's great, and Brad had to go off to sea to he's in the Navy, so he's out there doing stuff. But yeah, we don't do an algorithm thing. We just kind of wing it. We do like hashtags, and I think Brad started all the Always Sunny on Scarif, and and you threw in a couple in there, Deploy the Garrison and all that. So
Yeah.
we we don't do the algorithm game because we don't know how to play it. We just we like to have fun and just post when we can. I have the ability to be on Twitter almost 8 hours a day, so
That's too much for me,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I couldn't handle it anymore. The second I had the opportunity to bounce off of Twitter, I did it. Um, it just wasn't a good environment for me. I didn't like it. I was just getting in spats with people for no reason, and I would put my phone down and be all frustrated and angry. And I'm just like, this is not how I'm going to spend my freaking day. So
It's
I had to move.
hilarious.
I had to move away from that. And I admire people who can still stick it out. I know my team, Matt Vader, he runs my account now, salty_nerd. I gave it to him. I'm like, you just do it. Just promote the show. I don't care. I'm out. And I started building my own little world on a different platform. And for me, it's working out really well. I'm still trying to convince you to come over there. I don't know when it's going to happen. Someday when Twitter burns, you'll come
Yeah.
join us.
Every
But
so often I'll hear if I'm sitting at this computer working, I'll hear an alert and I'm like, oh, okay, let's check out Discord. I'm like looking through there. I'm like, I don't see anything new. Fuck it. I'm gone. Crazy ass app.
is that what is it? Is that what it is about Twitter? Is just like you can refresh it and it's always something new because there's just so many people out there talking.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can literally sit there and refresh every few seconds, and then there'll be something new. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool, and I'll respond to this, or, I mean, it's obviously it's a thing because, I introduce you to the Headliner app where you do the little graphics and stuff. You can sit there and do that all day, and then post those little clips.
yeah.
So it definitely is, kind of, I don't know, a little mind control action going in there.
Um, what is it about Twitter that keeps you there? I mean, for me, like I had good experiences. I met people like you. I met people like Brad. We had a good chat going on for a while. I met a lot of cool people, but the app itself, I found it to be grating. Like I would check it every couple minutes, like you said. It's a little bit of a mind control thing where you look at it and then you just keep looking at the same thing, waiting for the notification.
Hmm.
And like 9 times out of 10, I swear to God, and I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I'd post something like, "Oh, I kind of like this movie. It was kind of fun." And immediately the first comment would be like, "You're full of crap. That movie sucked." And I'm just like, you know what? I don't need this. So I'm always surprised at people who are like, "Oh man, I love Twitter. It's a great environment." And I'm like, was I just following the wrong people or what?
You know what? There might be a little truth to that.
Yeah.
Um, Twitter for me, and Cam said it in the chat earlier. It's a great source of entertainment. One, because I do see a lot of fights, and I'm like, what an asshole. Or I mean, here's the reason that I like Twitter. It's really because of the friends that I've made on Twitter. We have a Red 5 chat, and I don't know, there's like 27 people in there. We say good morning to each other every freaking morning at like 5 a.m. Get a
Nice.
life, please. We say, I got some coffee. We post pictures. If something's wrong, lately something serious happened to a family member of one of our Red 5 brothers. Just came in just to kind of share that news, and it was very supportive. And I think besides the DMs, I think I do find that my timeline definitely, I don't know, it definitely has changed for the better. Before Red 5, because I didn't have the people in Red 5 to kind of count on when it comes to sharing content and news and things like that. But now it's like, everybody's sharing each other's stuff. Everyone is commenting on each other's stuff. We got Cam that's always providing a dozen laughs, here and there.
Yeah.
Nick, Backyard TARDIS, who's always a wonderful, wonderful supporter. So, Yoda was right. You're not going to need those weapons going into that Twitter tree. It's whatever it is that you take in there with you is what reflects off of that experience. So
Okay.
I think I take that to heart.
Twitter is the dark side cave on Dagobah.
Exactly. You said it, but it's
And
what you take into that tree.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I can see that. See, for me, like when I was scrolling through Twitter, and this might be Backyard TARDIS. Thank you for the $5, Alex. You totally curated the wrong following, which is quite possibly it might have been. I got called a toxic Nerd by Pablo Hidalgo because I was mad about The Last Jedi. So I think I was in a group. We all kind of got shuffled into this one group where it doesn't matter what your opinion is. It's like you are who you hang out with at that point. Guilty by association type stuff.
Oh, that happened to me too, just recently.
Oh, really? Oh, do you got a
Yeah.
story? I haven't heard. I'm not on the whole up and up with all the Twitter stuff, so I don't know what's going on, which is a
No.
blessing.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, I like the Twitter drama is like, it's not fun. So the what you're describing with the DMs, and like having a group of friends who are like really tight knit and really supportive, and you get to hang out with them, and they post pictures and say, "Hey, good morning," or "Hey, I'm cooking tonight." That I took that element from Twitter and I moved it over to Discord, and I've been kind of growing that type of environment where it's a good group of friends, talk about movies, talk about everything. And one of the things that I took from you, because you were a little salty about one of the group chats that we had on Twitter, you were like, "There's too much freaking political stuff going on. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm just going to mute the channel for a while." And I was like, that's interesting, because I did agree with you. I was like, yeah, I usually just scroll past it. I try not to get involved. So Discord has this fantastic thing where you get to separate categories. So I have a category just for politics. So if you don't want to look at it, you can just mute that channel. I did that for you, Ro. I did that for you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. That's probably where all the notifications that I hear are popping in.
No, that's actually one of the least active chats, is the political one. Every once in a while, somebody will post a video in there about something, but no, we have a good time over there, man. And I think social media is exactly the way you described it. You get out of it what you put in.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of the platform that you're on. So I think you have a point there. You may have gotten me on that one, but Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter just kind of burned me.
I get it. I mean, I get it. We had that fight when, a certain podcaster didn't like the fact that you and I were friends. That was a while back. And, I'm not into that shit. Don't tell me who to be friends with, so
Yeah.
whatever. But, I get salty too sometimes. Not a lot, because obviously, people say that Scare of Podcast is like the
topic for a long, long time, but I just don't care anymore. I'm like, Star Wars is almost broken for me. I'm taking my fandom elsewhere. The only thing that's kind of hanging me in there is like Mandalorian and stuff, which, speaking of, I'm not really up to date on any of the news. Did you watch that new Disney Plus behind the scenes for season 2 with Mark Hamill?
Yep.
In full Luke Skywalker?
Yep.
Man, how freaking fantastic was that?
Very fantastic. I was, when the first set of behind the scenes for Mandalorian came out, the making of that last episode was mysteriously missing. There was no real feature on that, and I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, I think they're waiting. They're saving that for some time in the future, because why would they do the entire run and then not say anything about Luke coming in and all that stuff? So I think they have something special up their sleeves, and lo and behold, they did. So nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
There's a bit of healing going on, and I think the one who's behind it is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. I think they
healing. What do you mean?
Healing within the Star Wars fandom. Like, I think a lot of people, yourself included, were burnt by what happened to Luke. We were not happy with that. Right. And I think Mark Hamill, I think personally, based off of some of the interviews that we've seen of him and some comments that he's made, I think he was burnt by it too.
Oh yeah.
So I remember when that episode came out in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and Mark Hamill tweeted, or he did something on Instagram where he was like, "It's so nice to be able to see Luke Skywalker be a positive force again."
Right.
And we're like, everybody who knew what he was saying. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's really cool to see Dave Filoni. For me, it's just a glimmer of hope. I don't know. What do you think? Is there something there, or are you just like, you know what, Star Wars has never been dead? It's always there. They just had one mishap, and we're moving forward. Like, what's your take on?
If we say that Star Wars has only had one mishap, then this is a grandmother of a mishap. It's a big one, because it really did It really did split a fandom. I mean, there are people, you either love The Last Jedi or you hate it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even think that the prequels did as much damage to the fandom. And I do remember the songs, you know, George Lucas raped my childhood and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And there was a divisive nature to them. But I think in the years subsequent to the even the last the last installment of the prequels, you know, that has softened. Will the hatred towards the Last Jedi and this sequel trilogy soften as the years go by? I don't know, but I'm willing to bet probably not. I can't picture myself forgiving the Last Jedi um, in the future. I don't think
Yeah.
I will. And it's a movie that it's the only Star Wars movie that I've never purchased on DVD or Blu-ray or any media. I don't really see myself like softening up and saying, "All right, come on, Last Jedi, let's come in for a hug." I just don't see it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
can't be the only one that feels that way.
No, I think there's a lot of people out there like that. But it's interesting that you mentioned the hatred towards the sequels because I that was my era. Like you guys had the original trilogy, which I'm super jealous of. I watched the original trilogy in theaters when they were the special editions in the 90s. So I didn't quite get that authentic
Mm-hmm.
theatrical release. And my my generation, 1999, I was like about 9 or 10 years old or whatever it was when the Phantom Menace came out. I was the target audience.
Mm-hmm.
I dug it. You know what I mean? Like I
Sure.
watched Phantom Menace and I was in. I'm a 10-year-old kid. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Freaking Anakin flying pod racers and Darth Maul with the dual lightsaber. It
Sure.
was crazy.
Yeah.
But the thing that I kind of mentioned about the prequels is like they didn't age with me. Like
Mm-hmm.
the original trilogy, when you watch the original trilogy as a kid, it blows your mind, and then as you watch it as an adult, it kind of ages up with you, and there's a little bit deeper meaning behind things, and the story really holds up. For me, for the prequels, my mind was blown as a kid, but as I aged, the movies didn't age with me. They stayed in that younger generation, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like I started to be able to pick apart some of the story elements and some of the flaws, and that's what kind of I remember the hatred that it got when I was a kid growing up. Like people ragged on it, and I think Red Letter Media is a big influence on that. They did a whole breakdown of all the original trilogy or the sequel trilogy movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting confused. Prequel,
Right.
and they kind of tore them apart. And I think that was kind of like the start of the fandom revolt. I think I could be wrong, but it's a Star Wars is a weird thing, man. People are really passionate. There's people like you out there who are just like super passionate about it, and the love it and hate it at the same time, and still go for it. Like, is there where do you see the Star Wars franchise going in the future? Do you see a bright future for it, or do you think it's going to continue down this trend where like fandom is like kind of broken at the moment and it's not quite the same as it was back in the day?
You know, I've said this on the podcast and with other shows before. You know, we're never going to know um, what the true feelings of the higher ups are regarding the sequel trilogy. We're never going to know if Kathleen Kennedy or whoever that was in charge said, you know what, this was kind of like a little experiment narratively. We took three directors and we wanted to give each one its, you know, its own way of telling the story. It didn't work. Sorry, we tried. I think
Yeah,
I actually would have more respect for them if they actually came out and said that. I'd be like, okay, but you know, a company like that is not gonna say, "Oh, we screwed up. Sorry." They're not. I mean, they made their money. Obviously,
yeah,
Star Wars is in no danger of not making money. You know, so it's it's interesting. You know, I've heard your Matt Vader say that out of all the Star Wars movies, there's only maybe there's three like really good ones, and the
yeah,
rest are all crap, which I heartily disagree with. But I think, you know, if you have people that are like Dave Filoni and John Favreau at the head of that realm of storytelling. I think, you know, they're obviously they're fans, and you can say that, well, Ryan Johnson was a fan too. Well, maybe he was. I really don't know the guy. I don't know, but based on what he's done, I don't think that he understood what it was to create something that fans liked. And obviously I've heard him say, well, I don't want to create something that fans like. I want to
Yeah.
create something for me. I want to create, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But in that case, then, you know, go to your independent theater and make a small movie for you, not for the fans. When you come
Yeah.
into a franchise that is, one, this old, and two, this important to so many people, you have to make it for the fans. A lot of people think that the term fan service is a bad thing. It's not. Without the fans buying all this stuff behind me, there is no Star Wars. So you have to think of the fans, and Mark Hamill has said it too in all the interviews that he's
Yeah.
posted early on. And obviously, he was kind of slapped on the wrist, I think, you know, after the fact. But the videos are still there. I still believe that um, his first opinions were the ones that he really, really felt about the character. Obviously, he knows the character. He's played the character for years. So it'll be interesting to see where Star Wars goes. I think, you know, right now Star Wars is kind of going through a growing pain, but I think with the advent of Andor coming out soon, and Obi-Wan, and some of the other new projects, I think it's looking good. You know, when I remember times when there was absolutely nothing on the airwaves when it came to Star Wars, and now we're waiting for so much Star Wars content that it's crazy to think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it could be just, you know, they're taking it like spaghetti, throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. But I mean, I'll take that, even if we get another Last Jedi, and obviously we're not going to know until we see whatever it is that they're giving us. I'll still take it because it's Star Wars, and I love that universe. I love that galaxy. I love the characters. I'm not going to hate it before it comes out because I don't know what it, you know, I don't know what it is. So let me,
Yeah.
you know, give it to me, and I'll see what you got.
Yeah. I think with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, I think people are way more cautious about who's behind a certain project. So, like, for example, like if we get news that Ryan Johnson and his mythical trilogy is coming out soon, like I think a lot of fans are going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But as opposed to, like, I mean, there's some fans out there. Oh, Jon Favreau and Taika Waititi are doing a movie that might be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think nowadays people are paying way more attention to who's behind the projects
Sure.
and whether or not they're going to support it. I think that's where that early shit talking is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this movie's going to be crap because this is the guy who's making it, and he made this, and this, and these were all
Right.
crap, so this can't be good. Like, I think there's a certain amount of sauce going on where people are just like preemptively preparing themselves for the worst case scenario.
Sure.
And that's, I mean, it's a sad way to live, but it is what it is. You can't,
Yeah.
it's their opinion. If they want to roll, go for it. But I'm
Yeah.
excited for the Andor series. What I'm not excited about is the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I know, McGregor is coming back. It stresses me out. They're not gonna do it right. It stresses me out so bad. I'm like,
I can feel you.
yeah, I'm like, if they screw this up, it's
Yeah.
gonna hurt so bad.
Right. Yeah.
And I know they said something about having Hayden Christensen come back and have Obi-Wan fight Darth Vader, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's not how it works.
Yeah, and I've said that I've actually never said this on any of our podcasts publicly. You talked about Ryan Johnson getting his own trilogy. That, like, I'm not a boycott kind of guy,
Yeah.
but if he does get his own trilogy, that's probably where I'm going to voice or take action, and make a choice on my personal choice, I guess, to not see a Ryan Johnson trilogy, because yeah, I mean, I walked out of that theater asking myself, and it still hurts. It still
Yeah.
hurts, Alex.
Oh yeah.
But it's the Obi-Wan Darth Vader thing. Kathleen Kennedy came out during one of the Disney investor things and said that it's going to be the mother of all rematches. And I know a lot of people have issue with that. But Brad and I talked about that statement a few weeks ago, and I think it really depends on where it is that they meet each other again. I know a lot of people were counting on that original trilogy line where Vader tells Obi-Wan, when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. I think it can still work out, and we can still have something real fun to watch.
I disagree with you on that. I think there's an in that where Darth Vader, I felt a presence that I haven't felt since, and he like kind of zoomed out and he's like, the last time I felt it was in the presence of my old master, which was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like
Mm.
there's lines in A New Hope that heavily imply that the last time they saw each other was on Mustafar when Vader became the Vader that we know, and the only way that I can see that working would be if it was some kind of a force dream sequence or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not actually Darth Vader as we know him in the suit. It's actually Hayden
Right.
Christensen playing Darth Vader
Yeah.
as a fully formed, human and with all his limbs and everything attached. Like I don't know. I mean, they could probably do something like that. It would be a little wonky, but I just don't see them being able to do narrative backflips to get those two in the same room again
Right.
before it happens in A New Hope.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of hate going on for the Andor series in the comments. I'm actually really excited for this because it gives Star Wars a chance to kind of explore the darker side of things, the more
Yeah.
gray areas for the rebellion, and also do
Absolutely.
some cool spy, espionage stuff. Like, and I'm in, man. Uh, the only thing that I'm disappointed of, and this may have changed since because I don't really keep up with the news much anymore, but and what is his name? Tudyk, who plays K2SO, he's not attached to the project. Is that correct? Or have they changed their?
That was the rumor that was floating around very, very early on. But a lot of people are saying, well, of course he's going to say that because he wants to protect, whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, if it's true, I can see it because this is like kind of early on. We get to meet Andor. I think there's going to be some flashbacks because there was some casting news where they were casting a young, a young actor to play Cassian's role. So I think they're going to go back to his childhood. They cast his sister. So I think they're going to go back a little bit, but we might not see K2SO until either later in the season or maybe a season 2 if they go to a second season. But I'm sure a lot of people want to see that moment when Cassian, rescues or reprograms the droid. So
Yeah.
I'm not holding my breath on that rumor whether it's true or not. We'll see. I want to be surprised in this day and age of social media where every announcement is leaked or told or spread. I really want to go into Cassian just kind of blind and just be surprised like I was when I first saw Rogue One. It was just an entry into that galaxy that we've never seen before. Cassian killed that informant in the first act, and we're like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? That's ruthless. Yeah. So if we get a little bit more of that, I think it'll be really cool.
I think I'm looking forward to Filoni's project with Ahsoka. Her character's really come a long way. Like I didn't like her in the Clone Wars very much until much later in the series. Like
nobody did. I don't think
seasons like 5 and 6 is where I was like, okay, Ahsoka's cool. But now to see her played by Rosario Dawson and being just an absolute freaking awesome character, I really am interested in seeing that. I want to see what happens with Ezra. We got Thrawn in the mix now. Like there's a lot of action going on in Filoni's head and playing with these characters, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. So That's my biggest anticipation. Do you have one besides Andor? Is there something else that you're just like dying to see? You can't wait till it drops.
No, I think, really the three that you mentioned, I really enjoy Ahsoka. I loved, nobody loved her character when she appeared in the Clone Wars. She was a whiny little teen.
Yeah.
But she really has come a long way through the Clone Wars and Rebels, and her character has really matured. I think her importance to the overall scope of things has really, it made its place. I think Ahsoka, I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Andor for the reasons that you mentioned. I love the fact that we see the grittiness from his character and his crew in Rogue One. I want to see more. And Obi-Wan, it's funny because although Ewan McGregor is going to be in Obi-Wan, you've got for me Obi-Wan is probably the bottom third of the series, that the three series mentioned that I'm looking forward to. I'm probably going to enjoy it, but I think I'm itching at the bit more for Cassian.
Right on, man. All right, buddy. Well, it's been about an hour, and that's about how long I'm going to have these shows go on for. So is there a place where people in the chat can check you out? I think they all already know you, but go ahead and put your social media out there. Where can they find your podcast at?
Wherever you get your other favorite podcasts, over at Scarif Podcast, just look for the name Scarif Podcast, and we're part of the Red 5 Network. Look us up, Red 5, the number 5 Network. Yeah.
Do you guys have a Patreon?
Say again?
Do you guys have a Patreon set up at all?
We do. Patreon.com/Scarif Scuttlebutt or Scarif Podcast, one of the two.
Right on. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for that, man. I really appreciate you coming on. First guest to the Mondays. The man himself, the salty nerd. Look at that shirt. Awesome. Thank you guys in the chat. We appreciate the students as well. For you club members of the Salty Nerd, you guys know where to find us on Discord. But if you are not already a member of the Salty Nerd Club, go to saltynerd.com. We've just completely revamped our Patreon page. And we've got a whole new setup, and we're offering all kinds of cool stuff now. We're doing four exclusive podcasts per month just for club members and exclusive access to our Discord chat. Another $5 for Backyard TARDIS. Red 5 family for life is the scuttlebutt. Thank you very much, Backyard TARDIS, for that excellent outro. We appreciate it. Nick is amazing. He's a top tier guy, man. He's told us that he's doing a Wikipedia for the Salty Nerd podcast. He's going through every single episode. It's mind-boggling. I don't have the time to do that, but cheers to you, buddy. Thank you, Nick. We really love you out there, man.
Wow.
All right, everybody. Awesome. I apologize for the internet interruptions. I upgraded. I have the top-tier stuff. I don't know why it's not working, but we'll get it figured out. Next time will be even better. Ro, have a great night. Thanks for joining us tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll see you on the interwebs.
Stay salty, my friends.
Thank you, guys.